Welcome everyone to this hands-on series for AI for chemistry and materials. I think this event will be a little bit different to other workshops or seminars. This is more hands-on and demonstrations directly from the authors of codes that have papers. So I'm very grateful that we have a number of speakers willing to share their experience and also their codes. And our first speaker for today is Hyun Park, who is still a PhD student, soon doctor, and open for the market. Also, the idea is not just to bypass fundamental knowledge or what is back in the background of all these tools. So it's to share and also to create collaboration. So Hyun Park is very skilled, and I think he will be happy to share his knowledge, his tools, and also open for collaborations and probably job offers, right? So he will be in the market soon. All right, so the floor is yours, Hyun Park. So just one advice. So we will keep this fluent. So all the questions, please put them in the chat, and I will read them for you. Okay. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, please.
All right. Can you see the shared screen, right?
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming to the hands-on series. As Alvaro said, like my name is Hyun Park, 5th year PhD candidate at UIUC. Before actually I go any further, if you have a link to the code that we will be using as a demonstration of what I'm going to talk about today, you can open that now because we have to run some codes before I go through some of the slides that I have prepared for the workshop. So if you open this link that I just shared, you can click edit and then notebook settings, and then check that your hardware accelerator is T4 GPU. I mean, if you are paying for the collab, you potentially could choose a better GPUs like A100 or V100, but by default, if you are using a free version, we'll be using this, and click save. And if you are done with that, you can now first start with this button, click it, and then it will start installing all the necessary packages. This will take a few minutes, so I want to make sure everybody do it at this time, like right now. Otherwise, we may have hard time actually running some other codes that will be necessary during the middle of the talk later. So, and then all the talk materials, and then the analysis are based on and slightly like modified for the sake of the workshop from the paper that I published with Ruge, who is also I think attending here, with Elio Berta and then other collaborators. And then the link to the paper is here. Okay, so now, assuming that you have clicked that the first line of a code block in Google Colab, I will go into my brief introduction of who I am. So I am my major interest is developing machine learning and algorithms, to be specific, deep learning and algorithms on multiple different molecular systems, including biophysics and chemistry, material-organic framework, and polymer inorganics. I'm a biophysics student, so a lot of my applications at the beginning have been to proteins, lipid, drugs. But because AI and machine learning on these molecules are not just like confined in proteins or drug systems. It can be easily extended to other systems, such as inorganic, meta-organic framework, or other types of small chemistry or polymers. So naturally, I started collaborating with other very skilled PIs and then collaborators. So for today's talk, I would specifically talk about my paper, and then which is this topic, chemistry and meta-organic framework, which and the code that I shared with you in Colab will guide you through how to start training a neural network model that is able to predict certain molecular properties, such as say quantum mechanical properties like HOMO, band gap, or vibration energy, or say thermodynamic stability of certain molecules, such as meta-organic framework. So we are going to learn about like how to train, how to hyperparameter tune, and infer, meaning once you train the model, you're going to use that trained model to predict high throughput property predictions, and then multiple other analysis framework, which I call explainable AI, which highlights like some bones and atoms that contributed a lot to predict the molecular properties. And in the case of where our training, the machine learning training, was coming from a data set, which was say, for example, molecular dynamics of benzene ring, then we call that kind of task machine learning potential. So we will see how to apply the learned machine learning potential to a molecular system and perform machine learning based molecular dynamics as well. So the code that I shared is coming from the paper that we published, and then this is the QR code, and I'll have a smaller version of QR code in the corner, so you can always scan it if you would like to take a look. So before I go further, the machine learning for property prediction, overall very simplistic scheme looks like this. You start with some input X and the condition C, and then the input can be like almost anything, but it can be bound by what kind of machine learning algorithms you are going to use. The input in the traditional statistics or machine learning sense, such as linear regression or support vector machine or like a random forest. Normally we deal with the what we call the tabular data format. That means you have number of samples in the row, and you have number of features in the y-axis. So therefore, it's a table format. However, some of the algorithms, such as the deep learning, which is basically based on neural network or multi-layer perceptron, however you call it, the neural network-based the deep learning can take almost any form of inputs, including text, image, or atomic coordinate, etc. So in our case, I will demonstrate how we can plug in the coordinate information of molecules, including small molecules, to meta-organic framework, to a deep learning algorithm, so that we can predict certain output Y. And I am just listing some of the examples what the output can be. It can be say quantum mechanical properties, again, like HOMO, LUMO, band gap, or 0-point vibration energy. Or it can be something like a toxicity or like a binding affinity of a drug to a protein. Or in the case of, say, meta-organic framework, I have seen some tasks are certain properties such as the thermal stability or carbon capture capability, like CO2 adsorptions, are important. So those things are what we call the property or the outputs that we want to predict. In case some people may have questions such as how do you categorize, say, ChatGPT? So ChatGPT type of model is not really a scope for my talk today, because ChatGPT is called generative AI, But in many cases, I believe I read from some article, like a lot of tasks, like industry and academic wise, one of the most important tasks are still the regression or predictive models, which is given an input, you want to predict some certain properties, and that is what we are going to focus on. So putting all of these things together, we can write it this way. Y is either sampled from or is equal to some machine learning algorithm f of theta. Theta is the parameters. In neural network, it's called weights or biases, such things. And linear regression, it can be like slope and intercept, like y is equal to ax plus b. The a and b are the parameter theta. And x is the input, and condition, which is usually optional, is something that you wanna, when you want to add extra information, such as I want to predict the QM property of this molecule at a given condition, like at given temperature or pressure. Such things can be considered a condition. So such things are possible as well. So and today we are going to especially take a look at deep learning, and then deep learning is very, very flexible, which is also expressed in terms of multiple formations of artificial neurons. And then this is what we form the neural network in the architect deep learning. And then again, the expression in general looks like this. And this f of theta, the number of theta, which is again called parameters, can be easily, like say, just 2 or 1, all the way to say 20 million to 500 billion, or like a few trillions these days. But with ALCF, like say delta, normally the training up to a few billions of parameters are not really an issue. Yeah, so, and then the reason why we want to stick to the neural network is because neural network is known as a universal function approximator. That means it can express and approximate almost any functions there is as much as possible. And for this, we are going to take a look at 5 important components of how to train and use an AI framework. And then we are going to walk through them with the collab that I have prepared. And I'm going to specifically talk about the training, hyperparameter tuning, and inference, and explainable AI, and performing molecular dynamics, which is optional, but it's the case when we are interested in what we call the machine learning potential. Again, that is performing molecular dynamics with the forces that are predicted by machine learning algorithm, which happens to be much faster than conventional, like classical MD or DFT. So let's check if it's done. Yeah. So the first one is done. If it says session crashed for unknown reason, that's fine. Just ignore that. And now we are going to go click the rest of them here. All of these buttons. And then for this, let's choose SHNET, QM9, and say ZPV. So I made this drop-down menus so that you can always pick and choose what kind of models you are interested in using, what kind of data set you are interested in using, and what kind of task you're interested in using. So here are the 3 different combinations you can use for, say, PhysNet. You can choose QM9, and under QM9, you can choose either HOMO or ZPV. But if you are, say, interested in like CGNN, which is for MOVE specifically, you can choose, say, CIF data, and then you can just leave it blank in this case. But for now, let's just try to choose a SHNET QM9 with a, say, 0.5 vibrational energy, and click it. And here you can accept the default setting that I had it for you. And then click. And then click. And then click, and stop here, please, like if you are following me with the code. So Oh, so that was actually my collaborator's experiment with putting. So the question I got was why is there exit statements after installations? Well, I think my collaborator he tested with some of the settings of not putting and putting exit, and then if you do not put exit, occasionally the collab just gave us an error that prematurely like kill the whole session. So we just had to make some compromise, making the code a little bit messy in exchange for making it stable so that we can import everything without killing the session frequently. So that's just a practical reason.
Could you go up again? So
Sure.
it's net QM9 and
Here?
then a property. No, so when you select the data set.
Right, here?
Yeah, so okay, so you chose SNET, QM9 and 0 point energy, okay. And
Yes.
all right, for the rest, we just leave it at this, right? So it's
Yeah, just accept the default value and then run all the way here. And then this going to be a fairly quick step. So it's
okay.
like 20%. So yeah, while we are waiting for this 80%, let's just take a look at this diagram, which is now going to talk about, which is about like everything of these 5 components, but a little bit more in detail before we go each component by component. So what we are going to do through today's workshop is in this diagram. So here. So the inputs are what the 3D coordinates of your molecule and the chemical elements, which I also like to call atom species. Like a carbon is 6, hydrogen is 1, nitrogen is say 7, oxygen is 8. That's it. So we start from coordinate and the atom species, and then QM9, which is a database that contains a small molecule up to 9 heavy atoms, and their coordinate, and then and the corresponding atom species is one of the data that we are going to use. So it has the I think the minimized structure of like I believe 130,000 different molecules of containing only heavy atoms and their corresponding coordinates and atom species. And MD17, I believe, is like 9 or 10 different molecules perform, and it performed the ab initio molecular dynamics. So we actually do have coordinates, like hundreds of thousands of trajectory time steps of 10 different molecules, like benzene or or benzyl alcohol, something like that. I cannot exactly remember which molecules, but MD17 is a MD data set, molecular dynamics data set, while QM9 is a static quantum mechanical property data set. And HMOF is a hypothetical MOF data set, which again, MOF stands for Meta Organic Framework. And then QM9, for this, we have at least 19 different tasks we can do, like a HOMO, LUMO, bandgap, and amongst many others. But for this, we just for the simplicity, we are choosing HOMO and ZPVE as the predicted properties, but your users can choose whatever task they are interested in. And as for the MD17 dataset, because it's an MD trajectory dataset, we are interested in mainly 2 things: the potential energy of a given molecule and the force that is projected on each atom. That's how you can propagate a molecular structure during the molecular dynamics. Again, which we in our case is called the machine learning potential. And for the MOF, we are interested in carbon capture capability, so CO2 adsorption. Okay, and for the AI models for QM9, after our extensive experiments, QM9 worked pretty well with FISNet, which is one of the published architecture, SNET, and MPNN, which stands for Message Passing Neural Network, and a modified version of MPNN, where we replace some components that is known as a GRU, which is a little bit older version of the previous like generation kind of natural language processing unit called a gated recurrent unit. But details are not important. So we put a transformer component in the MPNN, and then it was able to further increase the this accuracy of prediction. You can find out the details in our paper at the beginning of Colab. And in case of MD17, we used the Torch MDNet neural network architecture to predict the potential energy and force. And in case of hypothetical move, we used the CGCNN. I believe it's Crystal Graph Convolution Neural Network, a published model. And then and CFISNet and CSHNet are just our modified versions based on the FISNet and SHNet. So these are the neural network architecture, and you take the input, and then it predicts the following properties. And we also have a component where we use a library called the DeepHyper. DeepHyper is a Python library that is very efficiently able to search the combinations of hyperparameters that can help the training and learning process of machine learning. So what's the difference between parameters of a neural network and the hyperparameters is that parameters are, again, like weights and biases or the slope or intercept of a neural network. Those are some numbers we want to optimize so that we can make sure that our machine learning algorithm predicts well of whatever you're trying to predict. Hyperparameters, on the other hand, are not part of machine learning algorithm. It's not part of neural network, but these are some options you can tweak so that you can help a machine learning algorithm to learn better, such as how many epochs you want to train your machine learning model. What is the learning rate? And then what is your batch size? So how many samples would you like to give altogether to a neural network model like at once? So not part of the machine learning like a model, but it's something that helps. Okay. All right. And then we are going to also talk about the explainable AI and then show how things, what kind of things that our neural network model has learned. So now that our data loading is done, we can move on to our first component, which is train. Okay, it will be done like within 1 minute. So in the training part is usually composed of 5 different components: the model, data set, loss function, optimizer, and save. And let's take a look at them a little bit more in detail. So as I showed in the diagram, like our model is a neural network model that it can choose easily. It's a drop-down menu that we saw up there. We'll take a look at it again. But in our case, we chose SHNet. And for the data set, we chose a QM9 database that's a database that contains coordinate, atom species, and what kind of tasks you want to perform. In our case, we chose SHNet, QM9, and ZPVE. And that is what we want to train on, the ZPVE, using the SHNet neural network architecture. And we want to choose a loss function. This is an objective function. Once our neural network makes a prediction on the property that we are interested in, we also want to make sure that this prediction gets better over and over again, like as you keep training. And you want to compare it with the ground truth, which is coming from this database. And then you want to minimize the difference between ground truth and our prediction. That is what we call loss function. MSE stands for mean squared error, which is literally the square of the difference between the prediction and the ground truth. And optimizer is the class inside Python that is able to update the neural network parameters. The save function is a function that will have you periodically update and then save if your model prediction becomes better every time. You don't want to save when the prediction becomes worse, but when it becomes better. So you want to periodically check whether the performance got better and then want to save it. And then ultimately you put all of them together. So you have the model, you have the data, you have the loss function, you have the optimizer, and you want to save it periodically whenever your loss drops than the previous best loss. So ultimately, when you train this is what it would look like. The training loss function keeps dropping, and then the validation also, which is a data set that our model has is not trained on. That's what we call a validation database. And then you will see that at some point there is some kind of a crossing at certain epochs. So this is a fake training curve. So do not really trust it. Take this result with a grain of salt. But this is what we expect to see during the training. We see a training loss function dropping, and then we will want to validate that our validation data set, which is again not part of the training data set, to train and update the neural network parameters. And we want to observe it, and at some point it will converge to intersect at some point, and this is where we want to stop or stop the training and then save our model and use it. So let's go back to the code. Since this is done, let's first test if our model data set and everything's ready. So let's click the first button, and then you will run everything quick and then give us some prediction soon. This prediction step will be usually like less than 1 minute for all the other sections. If it takes more than that, it's probably because you didn't choose this notebook settings to GPU. So make sure you choose GPU. If you are currently on CPU but choose GPU, you may have to start from the beginning, because Colab kills the whole session once you change the hardware or the accelerator. So for the training, we want to first run this first code, the train utils. This is where I define the saving functions and how to update. This is the optimizer function, how to update the parameters, and how we are going to define a loss function and update the neural network. So we just ran this code, and then we want to actually run it. In the previous code above, this section called pre-trained model, what you did by clicking this is you already downloaded the pre-trained neural network model that I deposited somewhere. So, but for the sake of this workshop, we are not really interested in training everything from scratch, although you can if you want. But I'm just gonna download the pre-trained model and then just pretend that like we are training everything from scratch. But so once you click this, you will see that something is getting trained here. And then now we see this training curve dropping, and some validation curve also kind of changing. And then we see there is some kind of convergence in 3. These plot, they look different from like different runs and different users. It's a stochastic process. So, and then if you want to really reproduce, it's a little bit more complicated than you think than just saying, I want to seed it, because there's a lot of stochasticity and undeterministic processes that are going into training neural network. But ultimately, if you train this like multiple times, you can save multiple neural network models, then you can get a little bit better statistics. So anyways, this training curve is comparable with what we are seeing here. Not exactly the same, but we see the training curve dropping and the validation will be changing, and then at some point it converges. So this is the training section. And then next, I'd like to talk about the hyperparameter tuning. So for hyperparameter tuning, we are interested in this because some combinations of hyperparameters, okay, that is like learning rate or epochs or batches, batch size, that is not part of the neural network parameters, but that can help neural network learn better. So the hyperparameter tuning is important because, again, some combinations hyperparameters makes neural network predict a bit better than other combinations. So for this, we are going to use a deep hyper library, and then we are going to define 3 functions called HP problem, which means what kind of hyperparameters are you interested in using? Are you interested in changing epochs, learning rate, batch size? and objective function, which is what do you want to minimize or maximize? Do you want to maximize the accuracy or minimize the some loss function? So that is a objective function. And evaluator is okay. Now you have these hyperparameters and the this objective function that you want to optimize. How do you want to perform this evaluation? Do you want to do it sequentially using CPU, or do you want to perform hyperparameter tuning using multiple GPUs in parallel? So in code, using deep hyper library, we are going to define the hyperparameters. In our case, I chose just random 3 hyperparameters: AMP, epochs, and optimizer. Sorry for the typo, but this is what I had in the code. But so AMP is the automatic mix precision. That means, are you interested in using a single precision, like that's 32 bits, or are you interested in half precision, which is 16 bits? So, and then why you are interested in doing that is in training or inferring with the trained neural network model with half precision is known to accelerate the prediction process. So and number of epochs is how many epochs you would like to keep exposing your training data to your neural network model until it gets better and better and better. And then optimizer is how you would like to update your parameters. There are many optimizer algorithms, such as ADAM, like SGD, standing for stochastic gradient descent, and say like RMS prop, like something like that. So you can give it a different combinations of optimizers, candidates of optimizers, and then perform hyperparameter tuning. An objective function, in our case, is a validation loss function, but deep hyper by default always tries to maximize an objective function. So we have to give a negative loss value. So we want to minimize the difference, right? But since we have to maximize some value, if we give a negative loss, then something we can maximize instead of minimizing the loss. So lastly, we have the evaluator, where you can give, do you want to do multiple GPU parallelization or MPI, or using CPU sequentially? And then you put all of them together and start searching for the best combinations of hyperparameters using an algorithm called CBO, which uses some type of a Bayesian algorithm. And then the result of a hyperparameter tuning would look like this. We first decided to use AMP, or number of epochs, and optimizers, and it shows the different combinations of hyperparameters and their corresponding negative loss, in our case, their objective function. So this is in terms of the best to poorest ranking. So we see that that this combination gives the best objective function, while the rest keeps getting worse and worse. And again, this is for the sake of just the workshop, so I didn't train that long. It's at best 1 or 2 epochs. In reality, you're going to run, like, say, hundreds of epochs or thousands of epochs, depending on how fast the hyperparameter tuning can go, so that you can get a more realistic and trustworthy objective function result. So in code, what it would look like is the following. Let's go to the hyperparameter tuning, and then click the HP config section, and then let's click this. Then it will start performing hyperparameter tuning, so that it can save all the data that we just saw here in the tabular format. And for you to see, if you're wondering where all this data is stored, I would like to take you to click this square here, and then all the intermediate data that may be relevant are stored here. In this case, we are going to click tuning results, and then double click results.csv, then and then increase to some other larger number. Then you see all of this information here. Again, everything is a stochastic process, so you won't get exactly the same result. Here, we see that if you turn on the say mixed precision with 2 epochs and using like some ADAM algorithm, you get the best objective function. Yeah, so this is how you perform the hyperparameter tuning. And the third component of our AI framework is the inference. Now that you perform the hyperparameter tuning and found the best combinations and really trained, sorry, like before that, I really had to explain this. Yeah, so hyperparameter tuning usually is performed before training because you want to first start with the best potential combinations of hyperparameters and stick with that, and then start training. So the order technically should be hyperparameter tuning and training, but I want you to start with training first so that you can understand what training a model means. So it was a little bit more intuitive like order of explanation for me. So again, the third component after hyperparameter tuning and training is inference. That means once you are done with training a neural network model, what do you want to do? You want to use the model to do the test that you're interested in. You want to predict the property. So for that, we have a model that is the same as the training, and then we have the data set also the same as the training. In our case, we chose SNET, and for the data set, we chose QM9 database and ZPVE as the task. And then here we also want to define some kind of loss function, but not to update the neural network parameters because it doesn't make sense for us to update neural network parameters during inference because you want to test how good the performance of your model is, not to update or train further. So for this, we just simply want to get the mean absolute error, the difference between ground truth and prediction, and get the absolute value out of it. And we also want to define a load function, which is, okay, since you periodically save the better model over and over during the training step, now you want to load it, your save the neural network parameters, and then start performing inference. So put them all together, we have the model that is loaded from the pre-trained neural network model parameters. And you have the data loader, which is just the data set. And you have some loss function defined. In our case, in this code, I use just the difference, but you can just easily use a mean absolute error, so difference, and get an absolute value out of it. That is also possible. And the result of this approximately will look like this. X-axis is the machine learning predicted predictions of ZPVE of QM9 database by SNET machine learning algorithm. Y-axis is the ground truth. And as you see, all of them are following the Y is equal to X line pretty well. And in code, it would look like the following. So let's first click the inference utils, which has all the necessary functions. And then let's actually try to infer. So this will perform the inference on thousands of data points, like within 20 seconds using the GPU accelerator provided by Colab. And also let's close this results.csv. And then we are going to plot something. So I don't want you to get shocked when you see a different figure now, because this will show a probably very poor prediction right now, a little bit. I mean, it sounds okay, but what we are seeing is not exactly the same figure as this, because we just update the parameters by going through these two previous examples. We performed the hyperparameter tuning, and we also did the fake training. So neural network parameters have already been kind of changed. So to get this better plot, let's actually go up the code, and then go up to call pre-trained model section here, and click it again. And then this will ensure that you get the reload the parameters of the pre-trained model. So, and then I expect to see, I believe, oh, sorry. I think maybe you should actually, from here, click the pre-trained model, and then just delete this file, and we'll just download it again. Seems like it's not really doing the task of deleting that and reloading. So once you, again, click the pre-trained model and delete whatever was there, and then click this again, and it will re-download the data and then load the model for us. Okay, it will take like 20-something seconds. It's done. And then, okay, let's do let's infer again. And then it will be done within 3 seconds. And let's plot. Then we will get the same figure that we saw in the previous, in the PowerPoint here. So again, x-axis is the predictions predicted by our neural network model. Y-axis is ground truth. And we see it's the statistics. The R-squared value is 1 and the rho is 0.99. Again, these are based on the validation or test data set that are, in our case, let's see, test data set, which our model has never seen. It has never been exposed to our model during training or validation step at all. So it means it is very good at generalizing and making the predictions on rest of the molecules it has never seen for the QM9 database base to predict the ZPV. And this is some other interesting statistics you could take a look at. The ZPV properties, for example, has like 0 to 8, like a ZPV values. And then the difference between ground truth and the real, their distribution looks like this. So you could spend your time on your own and then analyze if it makes sense. And then the fourth component is explanation. So for this, what we are interested in is the molecular representation and the highlights. So molecular representation means how you are going to describe a molecule. In more classical sense, you could extract the atomic mass or charges and hybridization to describe, say, a benzene. But using neural network, we can just extract some vector information that our neural network just learned during the training stage, and then use that to visualize where our data is encoded in 2 or 3-dimensional like space, for example. And highlight is to show what kind of atoms or bonds could have potentially contributed to predicting the property that you're interested in. So in code, I'm not showing the code, I'll show you in the actual code section. If you do the representation, which is again, molecular representation that I am showing here, this is what it would look like. So for the SCHNET QM9 ZPV, each data point stands for one small molecule. And then you see, although our molecule, our task was just to train to predict the quantum mechanical property of a small molecule, it is also able to do an extra task of even clustering them based on their properties. And again, our model has never ever been exclusively like done this task, but it is just a natural byproduct or result of what we can use. We can take advantage of neural networks, very flexible functionalities in order to perform the clustering that are naturally shown here. And this is what I call a latent representation, because now each point of each molecule can be summarized into each point in lower dimension. And the right-hand side is what I call the highlights of explainable AI. So when we were making a prediction of this molecule to predict, say, ZPV, what kind of atoms does our machine learning model think are important that contributed to most in order to predict ZPVE property? So in our case, we have nitrogen and 5 carbon atoms in the aromatic ring. And then it thinks that nitrogen and carbon, these 2 carbons, contributed like more negatively, while these 4 atoms, and then while these 2 carbons seem to have contributed more positively to predict the ZPV. Yeah, but in the case of hydrogen, yes, it has some colors, but in general, hydrogen contributes not that much for small molecule property prediction in my experience. So I showed hydrogen for the sake of like completeness of the molecule, but normally heavy atoms are more important when it comes to the actual prediction. And depending on what kind of algorithm you are using, say salience map is what we used here. We can also use say GradCam plus, and then it will show somewhat different results, which thinks that nitrogen contributes really positively. So, but in both sense, we see that nitrogen is somewhat a determining factor for contributing to prediction of CPBE. And this is for just an interesting case. We can also highlight bonds, but I haven't analyzed this bond analysis much in detail, but if you want to tinker with the code, and then probably you can find some more chemical insights. So in the code, we have, we can run this, extract the last tensor outputs code. And then after that, we are going to visualize the same plots, again, the molecular representation, summarized into much lower dimension. And then once it's done, we can click this, and then we will see the plot soon. Yeah, the UMAP algorithm here, what we're seeing is dimension reduction algorithm, so that if we have like a say 512 dimensional vector, we cannot really visualize it with a modern computer, or nor can we imagine like what it would look like. So we want to further reduce the dimension to like 1 or 2 or 3 that is more manageable and can be easily visualized. So this is what UMAP or TSNE or PCA algorithms are. So and after that, we will see that we have a low, medium, high. And then again, the result is a bit stochastic. So we have some flipped over, but we still captured these 3 distinct clusters. And then for the highlights of the atoms and bones, you want to first run this code and this load explainers and XAI projection preparation, and examples all will give you this, and then you will click the last slider for XAI. By doing this, you will be able to now visualize the 3D coordinate confirmation of whatever input you are using here, and as corresponding XAI. So if you want to know, it's okay, how do I test the different molecule? You go back all the way to the top of this code, and you can just change it to other smiles you are interested in using. Right. Yes. So here, just change it to some other molecule, like a benzene or whatever you can find on the online. Then it will, and then run that code, and then go back here. Then click the slider part again. Then it will reflect whatever new smile string you just gave, and perform the explainable AI on all the molecules. And lastly, and optionally, we can perform machine learning potential, which is given a molecular trajectory data set, you want to learn the potential energy and the force projection on each atom. And then you want to use it more on a different molecule of interest. So if you trained on benzene, you may want to test it on, say, naphthalene, because it also has ring structures. So in code, what it would look like is you give a smile string. We just saw how to pass a new smile string that you're interested in, and we extract some mole information from there, and then you want to perform molecular dynamics there. So these 2 lines of code will perform the actual molecular dynamics. And say if you trained on uracil, you may want to test these generalizabilities on other like ring structures or ethanol into, say, other types of alcohols. And in our experiment, when we trained our model with the ethanol, a linear molecule, it wasn't able to really generalize too well to the ring structure and vice versa. But if we train the model much longer with a more diverse set of database, the generalizability can potentially be achieved as well. So the machine learning potential and transferability would look like this. So left-hand side is the total energy, which is kinetic energy plus the potential energy of molecule alongside the molecular dynamics trajectory times versus its total energy. And right-hand side is the result from our paper, where sorry for the a little bit grainy quality, but this blue is the distribution of the CC bond in ethanol, and rest are some other molecules that we tested on, such as other types of alcohols. So what we can see is, the CC distribution of other molecules are not exactly the same as the CC distribution of ethanol, but their average value is very comparable. What it means is that when you're testing machine learning potential, there are a few things that you want to keep in mind. Does it generalize well? That means, is the molecule going to break apart so that the atoms fly everywhere? And if that does not happen, how can you validate it? You can use say CC bond, CO bond, or some angle distribution calculation, and then see that your machine learning potential actually is able to predict the sensible forces and potential energy so that the molecular dynamics simulation can be performed seamlessly. So those are the ways to validate the machine learning potential. If the machine learning potential does not generalize well, such as the case I trained on ring structure and want to generalize on linear molecule, usually you will see the CC values, for example, if the average is 1.35 to 1.40, it will just easily go to 5, 6, 7. The value that's not even in the x-axis, because it just falls apart. So it shows that transferability or generalizability works as well. So for that, in the code, we want to first click the prepare custom calculator as MD, and we want to perform MD simulation. And this is the sorry, you cannot run it for now because you should use a different task set. In this case, you want to go to click Torch MDNet and MD17 database and say ethanol, for example. Then you want to click and click that, and then call the pre-trained model once again, so that you can download and the checkpoints of your pre-trained model. And then you want to also call the database, which is the ethanol database in our case. And then once these two steps are done, you may want to go all the way down and then click this, then it will perform the correct molecular dynamics simulation. It's not going to give you errors at all. And then after this is done, you can click the last part, and you will be able to get this total energy plot. Since this data loading and everything takes a bit long time, I think you can do it on your free time if you want to test the code. For now, I'm not going to really test it now. I'll wait and see if it really downloads well within time. But for now, this is everything I would like to talk about for today's workshop. And hopefully, it helped you understand how to train molecular database, and then how to train, infer, and then explain and visualize and perform hyperparameter tuning from this workshop. So I thank you for coming here and listening to me. And if you have any questions, I think I can answer them.
Yeah, thank you, Hyun. I think I actually, as I tried myself, I changed the molecule. I made it with this, with this tool to draw molecules online, and then export the molecule in smiles, and it works
Yeah.
Yeah, so I draw something like a
Yeah.
a carboxyl group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very interesting. So, hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So when you do the high parameter optimization, do you do, or is it possible to run, for instance, cross validation at the same time so you don't overfit just
Oh,
the high
yes.
parameters of this, you know, the batch that you selected for training?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So during the hyperparameter tuning, I just didn't say everything in detail. So how the hyperparameter tuning is performed is for the given combination of a hyperparameter, you are going to train for a number of epochs that you are choosing, and then you want to use a validation data set, which is the next line here, and get its loss value. And then that's what you want to minimize, or in the case, maximize the negative loss value. So yeah, you are not directly optimizing for the result of the train that comes out from the training. You are actually trying to optimize the value that comes from the validation loop after your training is done for a certain number of epochs for during hyperparameter tuning. So yes, this will prevent the hopefully prevent the what is it, the overfeeding. Yeah. So yeah, which can be definitely a concern if you only use the training to optimize. So you use the validation.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. No, actually, probably this is one of the parts that I never practiced before, and I think cases. I mean, we did with Ganesh a high parameter optimization to find the best descriptors, but not necessarily. And also, we did that to optimize, you know, high parameters in the Gaussian process. And
Yeah.
yes, but in this case, well, you are moving these epochs and solver
Yeah.
portions. Yes, yeah, I would like to learn more about deep hyper probably in the future, because
Yeah.
I know that also can play with the architecture of the network. So
Yes.
how deep and how large, I mean, how many layers and how deep them
Yes. Right. Yeah, definitely. If you're talking about the number of nodes, like and then yeah, the width and the depth of a neural network, that's definitely something you can use as a hyperparameters. And deep hyper library on deep underneath, it uses some other libraries such as scikit-opt as one of its functionalities. So but anyways, whatever it is, deep hyper is able to perform hyperparameter tunings like we just showed today. Or for those who are interested in, it can also perform what you call the NAS, the neural architecture search. So that means it's a bit different from hyperparameter tuning. It's trying to find the best neural network architecture. So not about this, yeah. So that is a different story. But Deep Hyper is able to provide both functionalities. And in the case of the Gaussian process that you tested before, yeah, you have to change a little bit of codes because, like, if you use say scikit-learn Gaussian process or some other codes, you may not really deal with the optimizers or some other functionalities that I had here. So just change a few lines of code that are affected by that, but you will still need to train and validate so that you can get these like uncertainties predicted by Gaussian process model. But essentially, what you are going to do for hyperparameter tuning is the same. You want to make sure your validation loss function on your trained Gaussian process is minimized or maximizes negative loss value as much as possible. So changing a few lines of codes is inevitable, but yeah, overall idea is exactly the same.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else has a question. Just post the question in the chat so I can read it for you, or just open your mic if you like. Yeah, probably I'm biased because we practiced before, so I had most of my question answered. But well, I don't. Seems like there is no questions for now, but
Alan, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Murat.
Yeah, it's first of all, wonderful presentation. I really liked it. It would be great if you can go through this explainable AI. I mean, maybe I missed while you are telling this, but what were these 3 clusters correspond to in this plot? Could you go through that again?
Okay, sure. So what I am finding very interesting from this type of plot is that machine learning algorithm, like objective function, it was just one thing. Can you, given the molecular coordinate and corresponding atom species, or what I call a graph input of a molecule, can you predict the quantum mechanical property? That was what this neural network architecture and then training like objective is all about. Can you give me an algorithm that can predict the property well? But some of the byproducts of or other extra information we can extract from a neural network is say some learned high dimensional vector information. So normally when we talk about neural network, it would look something like this, for example. Very, very simplistic representation and description of the neural network. But this, for example, these first 2 nodes are the input. Like this is where the, like I say, XYZ coordinate stuff are going into. And this, the last layer is where you make the prediction, like ZPV or HOMO, something like that. And somewhere in the middle, we can extract what we call the hidden representation or deep layer, like whatever you call it. I just like calling it some vector representation. And you extract this learned high dimensional vector for a given input. You can use this high dimensional vector to further reduce this dimension to lower dimension, like using PCA or UMAP. And when you do that and color each of those data points, each scattered data point is one molecule, you see that it's actually able to put some kind of separations in between, like where the low is located, where the high is located, where the mid ZPV value things are located. So I admit that this doesn't look like too separated, but it's partially because we are representing it in 2D. If you represent it in 3D, like this low location, cluster location, will be somewhat separated from the mid location, and then also separated from high ZPV locations. So you can see this natural clustering of the data points of a low ZPV data points, and the mid, and then high. And again, this is just a result of what neural network learned, so that it can predict the ZPV properties with a very, very high precision. And then I didn't know that there would be a cluster separation like this until I actually visualized it. But this is what neural network has learned. And this is this is the power of neural network. You can do a lot of things by extracting all of this like a hidden information to perform multiple other tasks, including clustering, and then also visualizing these like atoms and bones that you see here. So does it help you with the understanding of your question?
Yeah, definitely. So did you look at specifically the molecules that corresponds to high ZPVs?
Yeah, we did for the paper. My memory is like a little bit slipping, like because I don't exactly remember what molecules we took a look at. But yeah, during the paper writing, yes, we did take a look at them, and then there were certain patterns. I think because QM9 has up to 9 heavy atoms and a variety of atom types. I think it's not just carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. It has, I think, a sulfur or something like that too, or fluoride. Yeah, there were some high-performing ZPV molecules tended to have certain functional groups more than low-performing ones. So there were some kind of functionality differences.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, this remind me a little bit this science paper of Tachenko and Klaus Müller, where they project. I don't remember if they train over local properties like charges or something like that over the surface of the molecules with colors. And they say, well, the network is learning some quantum chemistry, yeah. Right. So just the color bar corresponds to. So you scale the high and low.
No, this is the actual ZPV value.
Okay.
There's like 0 to like 8 or something. So I'm just coloring it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yes, I don't see any more questions. Well, I will stop recording. But before that, I want to say thanks for willing to speak today and also to prepare all these materials for us. And thank you. So I will.
Thank you.
Yes, I will put these materials also online in the GitHub repo, so everyone can if they miss the link, just go there, and also cite you if they use these tools, I guess.
Sure. That things you can cite is here, prepared for as a beep text. So yes.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. If you would be taking questions via email afterwards, I would like to have a good look at the code as well.
I mean, sure, you're free to. Is there somewhere like my email address? Otherwise, I'll just add it now here.
Perfect.
Okay, email. Let's see. Yes, here, this is my email. I'll save it, and then you have to re-download this again. My link does not change, but whatever I make updates, it'll be all reflected. But if you already downloaded the local copy, it does not reflect my changes like at all. So you have to re-download from the same link again so that you can see the latest code.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.